I couldn't even imagine how big of a transformation I was about to experience. Oh my gosh, my face. This is how you look past Jess. You're gonna be looking and be like, oh my goodness, he looks so different when I get back in the future. If future Jess gets back to Georgia and gets to it. When the future Jess gets back to Georgia and starts getting back on her what am I saying? When she gets back to Georgia and kills it with okay, I'm gonna stop. When she gets back to Georgia and flourishes and is successful and is doing what she loves and is in a community, making friends, doing her yoga, going back to working out, going to her dance classes, saving, getting her stuff done, her taxes, health insurance, all the things that she always puts off. When you get back, you're gonna be a whole new Jess. You're gonna be your highest self, girl. And I can't wait to meet you. I feel like I don't even know how I feel. I'm like numb and I'm hungry, but I don't. It's like it's hard for me to eat. Oh look, leave by 3:28. I have so many fears in life, but my main two will have to be death, which is me or someone that I love dying, and flying on a plane, which kind of goes hand in hand with the whole fear of death. But today I will be facing one of those fears, and that's flying on a plane, and not just that, but by myself. Now, I've unfortunately flown on a plane maybe about 10 times in my entire life, and each time I hated it. But I was at least with someone I knew each of those times. This time it's just me, myself, and I. That's all I got in the end. That's what I found out. So yeah, my heart was pounding and my anxiety was so high that I was shaking internally. I do have a good poker face though. But being serious, I really needed to do this because, well, for one, I'm a freaking 27-year-old adult. But most importantly, because I really needed to go see my grandmother. Now, when I say my grandmother, I really mean my favorite and most important person to me in this entire world, besides my mom and my boyfriend. My biggest supporter, my inspiration, the main person who inspired me to wear out my natural hair when I used to be that girl who straightened her hair every day. The person who can take my anxiety away with just the sound of her voice. I could go on, but to sum it up, I truly feel like she is like a soulmate to me. And yes, your grandmother can be your soulmate. So, yeah, a little over a year ago, I learned that she had developed a blood cancer called MDS that she had been dealing with long before she even told me about it because she didn't want to concern me, so she kept it away from me for a while. But then later, that progressed into leukemia. Now, the good news is she was able to get a transplant, which is actually going to be her second transplant because the first one didn't work too well. All she had to do was kind of just like stick it out like a couple of months, just to, I mean, the doctors were still giving her stuff, but it would take a couple of months for the transplant to start working with her body. But unfortunately, during that time, about a couple of weeks ago, she developed an infection, which is like the number one dangerous thing for leukemia patients, since leukemia can cause you to have a very weak immune system. So it took a toll on her, to say the least. She had a terrible cough, she was barely eating, and worst of all, it had started to affect her lungs. So she had to be admitted to the hospital so she could be on oxygen and so that they could treat the infection. At that point, I obviously was freaking out And I literally called her crying and telling her that I had needed to be with her. No matter if she was going to be in the hospital the whole time, I would stay there with her. So yeah, now I'm here. And I survived the plane ride. Of course I would. I said, if she could deal with everything that she's been dealing with, I can deal with the freaking fear of flying. So I'm here. Driving in LA. On my way to go to see my grandmother at the hospital. It's been interesting. I don't really know how to feel about this trip. I want to document it, but I also am so torn because I want to be able to. All I want to do is be able to be with my grandma every day, all day, every day. But I also am like, I want to be able to document my time here and even us together, which my grandma hates cameras and videos, so I don't know how that's gonna work out. But I feel like it'll be nice to be able to look back on this moment with me being out here. But I also feel guilty because I'm like, I shouldn't be worried about filming, or I should just be present and being with my grandmother. But then I don't know. But this has been probably one of the highlights of my time being here, just driving through. I decided to take the streets because I'm not used to driving out here. So it's been nice to take the streets to the hospital, I guess. So it's a lot of interesting sights, just a lot of sightseeing and just interesting parts, just different from, where I'm used to. My camera keeps, stop doing that, camera, just stay, okay? Just stay. Just stay like that. I feel like I gotta move my hair out the way too because my hair is so big, and I am paranoid of just driving, period. So I gotta make sure I can see, and sometimes if I wear my hair out, it blocks my view. There's a lot of interesting people in LA. Just driving through the city, I've seen all the kinds of people. It's a sight to see for sure. Well, I'm not gonna lie, seeing my grandmother for the first time and witnessing in person what the leukemia, the chemo, and the infection had done to her body was very hard to see. My grandma didn't look like herself. She had lost so much weight, but I tried my hardest to just focus on the fact that I was finally there with her and to cherish our time together as much as possible. We spent most of our time talking, watching the news, watching movies, and sleeping. And it was the best. Truly, it was the best. I was even able to spend the night a few times at the hospital. I also ended up finding these vegan protein shakes for her to drink since she didn't have much of an appetite for food. And she loved them, which was amazing. I was so happy about that. They're vegan and they're specifically for cancer patients. And then the hospital itself was a whole other experience. I had never spent so much time at a hospital, let alone spend multiple nights in one. It felt like I was in a whole other world. Nurses and doctors are truly superheroes. And this is day 8, and I decided to go back to my grandmother's place to freshen up and wash my hair since I hadn't been caring for how I've been looking the entire trip. But I was starting to feel dirty after a couple of nights of sleeping on a hospital chair, so I needed to refreshen up. And then after that, I went back to the hospital for my final few days there. By my last day there, she was doing a lot better as far as her energy and her weight and her appetite. So I have to give credit to those protein shakes for one, but also the doctors were giving her a lot of medicine and stuff for her infection. Leaving her was so hard. But I felt good knowing that she was doing better than how she was when I first got there. Even her infection seemed to be improving, and the nurses were saying she may even get to go home. Despite the infection, her transplant was still progressing well. And so, although, like I said, it was so hard and so sad for me to leave, and I wished I could stay longer, I was so happy to leave her knowing that she was doing better. And I would definitely be back. By the time I got on my second flight, I have to be honest, it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. Maybe it was because I was watching my favorite movie. No, maybe it was because I made sure that I wanted to fly the best airline, which is Delta, and that was comforting. In Delta, the experience was great. Maybe because I looked up what time turbulence, what time is the best time, and there's minimal turbulence on the plane, and that's like 6 a.m. in the morning. Maybe because I don't know. I was proud of myself, like overall this was a huge, I mean, besides seeing my grandma and like the whole experience of, that, I mean, this was a huge challenge for myself to get over my fear, and like I felt so proud of myself because I did this all by myself. I didn't have my mom there next to me or my boyfriend, and I know my grandmother was proud of me because she knows how much I fear planes. But obviously anything for her. I mean, like, duh, she literally is being, I don't, like, yeah, she's dealt with so much. So, anyways, I'm so proud of you, Jess, and you'll be back to see your grandma. You'll actually be back sooner than you thought.